Hi there, I'm Shelley. Thanks for joining for one pose. We're gonna do child's pose today. This is a very common pose in many yoga classes, and it honestly doesn't work for everybody's body. So we'll get into it, we'll do it a few different ways, and remember that there's no right way, there's simply the way that's right for you today. So let's see what we can do. If you can be on your hands and knees, that's what's needed in this pose, and then we'll give some modifications, and then we'll also give some variations of the pose. So let's try it. If you have sensitivity in your knees, I have some props. So I have a blanket, I have a bolster, and I have one yoga block. If you have a blanket and then a couple of pillows or a sturdy couch cushion, that will probably suffice. So this pose starts on hands and knees. And first of all, if you have any sensitivity in your knees, you could either put a double mat here, or you could open up your blanket pretty thin and put that underneath the knees. So that would be one support for your body. The other thing to recognize is that it requires a little bit of ankle flexibility because the toenail sides of the feet are actually what's on the mat. Typically, or oftentimes you hear in this pose, big toes touch and knees wide. That's one way to do the posture. When you push the hips back, you might watch my body. If I'm doing that, then my chest is going to fall toward the floor in between my legs. That makes this a little bit of a heart opener. So it's a little bit of a back bend. The chest is sinking toward the floor. Maybe you're still engaging through the hands or the hands are reaching forward. This is called an extended child's pose. I prefer to have the knees a little bit closer together so it's a little more stable in my pelvis, and then pressing the hips back. We're getting a stretch through the fronts of the feet and the ankles, spreading the toes out. And then for me, I just kind of wobble my chest, maybe open the knees a little bit more, and then rest the forehead down on the mat. I'm pulling this blanket back because I don't want my face on the blanket. And then if your forehead doesn't come down to the mat, then you do want to open your knees a little bit wider and let the chest come between the legs. So give your body a little bit more space. The most important thing is that the forehead is connecting to something. When the head is up in the air, the body isn't really fully relaxing in child's pose. So you could stack the hands and rest the forehead on the backs of the hands. You could stack fists here. You could put another blanket or even put a block underneath your forehead. So we want the head to come somewhere. So notice what that feels like in your body and check in with your knees. We'll stay here for a couple of moments and then I'm going to give another modification. So if this is feeling good to you, stay in the child's pose here. Breathing in through the nose, bring the breath down the spine, feeling the back ribs expanding, breathing in the kidneys down at the low or mid back. So breathe in there, the adrenals sit right on top of the kidneys. I'll talk about the energetics of the pose in a second. If this isn't comfortable for your knees, then I'm going to invite you to lift your hips up a little bit, and then you could tuck your toes under, bring your forearms to the floor, and push the hips back into a little bit of a relaxed puppy pose. And again, you might have the block underneath your forehead, and then pushing a little bit into the forearms. Take a couple breaths here. The hips could be high. You could sink them back as much as feels comfortable. So find your version. We're going to stay for 3 or 4 more breaths. As you're in child's pose, feel the shape of the body. This is the shape that many of us slept in as children. The shape of the body when you're inside the mother's womb. This is a very safe, secure posture and one that settles the nervous system. It's also, if you settle the nervous system, you're grounded. You're really close to the ground here. Take another full inhalation and exhale. Keeping the forehead connected to the ground or your hands, rock the forehead side to side. This is massaging out the forehead, in particular the space at the hairline and the top of the forehead. This is one of the adrenal center points. If you do any tapping, This is one of the places where we oftentimes can help ourselves feel a little bit more settled. And that rocking, releasing into the neck. And then simply put your palms on the floor, lift the chest so it's parallel with the floor, and sway the torso a little side to side. Just find some ease there. And then we'll breathe in and come up to table pose. Pardon me. A little counter pose, round the back, tuck your chin. Rock the spine forward and back. Nice. And then I want to give you a couple other options. So we could find a restorative version of child's pose, bringing a blanket in front of you, and this is for the torso. And again, if you have a little bit more need for room for the belly, if you're pregnant or something, you might want to put the bolster a little bit further forward. Otherwise, the bolster could be flat on the floor. Snug your knees up around the bolster. I put one block underneath that bolster. It doesn't need to be there, up near the top. And then if you reach for the top of the bolster, lengthen out your spine. And when you come down, one ear is on the bolster. The hands could rest underneath the bolster if it's on the block, or simply rest the hands out to the sides. Open the elbows a little bit wider and let the whole weight of the head and the neck, the torso, rest on your bolster. If you're having a hard time and you feel like you're still holding yourself up, you could take your blanket and fold it up and then set your blanket on that bolster so that you've got a little bit more of height for your body, and then laying down. That might feel better. Go ahead and take another breath here. And feel especially the exhalation. So this is supported child's pose. Allowing the body to be still and quiet, or at least still. Maybe the mind is still racing. Watch every inhale and watch every exhale. And take one more breath here, this ear down. We'll transition to the other side. Inhale, turn your nose down. Exhale, other ear, other cheek to the floor or to your bolster. Stay here. And now notice the breath in particular. As you breathe in through the nose, feel the breath spread down through the ribs, down the spine to the low back to the pelvis. And as you breathe out, feel a little gentle constriction, a pulling up and in of the pelvic floor. Breathe in and down, fill up, make some space, and breathe out. Pelvic floor drawing up and in, navel up and in. Take another breath like that. Unclench the jaw, relax your eyes, and settle into this felt sense of the body being held. You choosing to nurture yourself in stillness. You feeling your safety in the body, letting that translate to feeling safe and grounded in the mind and your energy. Stay as long as you'd like. It's a good idea to spend 10 breaths, maybe 3 to 5 minutes. And when you feel finished with that posture, in your own time, you're going to rise up to table pose. And then breathing out, you'll exhale, lift the hips high and find a downward dog. So you can get a little bit of breath and space into the backs of the legs after having the knees compressed. Stay as long as you'd like. Be well. We'll see you soon for the next pose.